Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is?
I will tell you what's the definition of insanity. It's thinking you can create whole dungeon in 1 month.
Today's subject.
Dungeons. Hello and welcome back to Bubblegum Games. My name is Filip and I am developing a 2D top-down game inspired by A Link to the Past and Devlog called Rutsy's Tale. In the last video I've said probably the dumbest thing in my entire life, that I will create whole dungeon number 1 for the next video. Considering the intro, video title and everything else, you've probably guessed that it didn't went that well. I mean, yeah, progress was made and there is a lot to show, but the dungeon is still incomplete and it is only my fault. Remember me talking about that sine wave in the last video? Yeah, it went here. I've experienced some kind of burnout. I think that's simply other stuff like exams stacked over pretty fast and unexpectedly, which led to significant lower amount of work done. But instead of talking what's not done, let me invite you to a journey with how I created somewhat finished infested beehive dungeon.
Let's go!
Alright, so this devlog will be somewhat different from the previous ones. I always directly told you what I was doing while showing you progress in the background, but I need to explain something. Right now Rutsy's Tale is in very early stage of development, somewhere around here. But in the future, I would love to release demos, beta versions, hold playtests and receive feedback before official release. So if I would like to have reliable opinions, I need to have my players go into the game blind. That's why direct progress will not be shown, as me showing you walking through the dungeon will disturb first time experience. If I would have to compare, I would say creating dungeon is like building Lego set, but instead of buying one, you have to create your own blocks, and there is no instruction. So in one word, insanity. Now that we have that out of the way, let's begin. First step was never meant to be tilemaps, but I did it nevertheless. I should have started with the layout, item mechanics, new enemies. Instead I've spent too much days in Krita drawing those honeycombs. At first it was okay, I guess, just walls, some doors, a few decoration, but it went downhill really fast. Later, when I was making dungeon layout, I came up with idea of having 2 floors in one room, so I had to draw additional tiles for the bottom floor. Not only that, but also adjust all the doors, decoration. That's why I should have kept it for last. Also got a little headache with z-index. Sometimes Rutsy has to be on top of tile map, sometimes behind it. With different approaches throughout these 2 months, I think that is finally solved, but I can tell you how, just trial and error. One thing I am really proud of is room transition. I use hard-beast approach of camera. It uses 2 nodes that dictate limits of camera. It is a really cool solution, but becomes flawed when you have to move camera behind the limits. I mean, you could build those pre-made rooms, but it also has one flaw. What if you would like to have bigger room? For example 2x2, 3x3, what about L-shape, circle room? That's why I came up with this. Whenever player enters this invisible area, it creates a twin that will move camera limits to new values. It isn't probably anything advanced and most certainly can be made better, but I didn't find similar tutorial anywhere, so if you would like to, I could create short video how to mimic Zelda dungeon room transitions. Let me know. Last time I spent most of the devlog explaining how I created 4 new enemies, so I won't repeat myself as creating new ones was more or less the same stuff. So let me present them quickly to you. I just couldn't look in the mirror after I abandoned Ant Spearman. That's how Wasp Spearman was created. He roams around Beehive and when Rutsy enters his attack radius, he plunges down on him, sticking his spear into ground, similar to Ant Barbarian. As less brave cousin, Wasp Sprayer doesn't like direct combat. Instead, he sprays around toxic substances in order to infest Beehive even more. They are also very dangerous to Rutsy, so better watch out. Both wasps are flying enemies, so they can't be hurt with sword. Instead, player has to wait for the weak point, or weak them on your own, using magic flower powder. More of that later. I want to have 5 unique enemies that will spawn in dungeons and around dungeons, so that leave us with 3. Additional ones are Honey Golem, Spider Minion, and Ebon Wisp Spirit. While Honey Golem and Spider Minion aren't anything special, first one just pops up from the honey pool, and the second one is a very fast, annoying enemy that pops up from cocoons. Ebon Wisp Spirit is something new. Ebon Wisp is dark magic casted by Grimclad, and it is source of all evil that happens right now in the garden. Spirit is different to other enemies, because it is immune to sword attacks. Wait, so how exactly could you defeat it? Answer is magic flower powder. You see, it's not just really stupid pink powder that can burn spider webs. It is actually the exact opposite of Ebon Wisp magic. This right here is extracted straight out of core of garden magic, the most powerful of all the powers in this universe. Just a sprinkle of the dust is enough to release Spirit from torment of Grimclad's evil magic. Dungeon layout is probably the most important stuff in creating one. You need to make sure that the dungeon is not confusing, but also engaging and forcing you to think. In order to be the best dungeon creator, I've played through the beginning of A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening to see Nintendo Mastermind's approach. I also watched GMTK's Bosky series to hear opinion on dungeons from somebody who knows what he is talking about. However, I've noticed one thing. GMTK was praising dungeons that are complicated, require a lot of thinking and backtracking, and criticized dungeons that are more linear and simpler. In the comments, you could see completely different approach. Dungeons which were heavily atmospheric, had an amazing moments or memorable bosses, were remembered more fondly than the ones based around interesting but hard to comprehend mechanics. Players love dungeons like Snow Peak Ruins, where atmosphere, theme and cool items are very memorable, but weren't so forgiving for Divine Beasts, which introduce unique mechanics of moving the whole dungeon around, but their repeatability was tiring and forgettable. I guess that is the difference between thinking like player and thinking like game developer. This whole learning process taught me a lot of important stuff. Thanks to that, I was able to make complicated calculations, which allowed me to create perfect mix of atmosphere, puzzles and challenge. I am just that good. According to YouTube videos, first dungeons in 2D Zeldas take around 5 to 10 minutes to beat. And that was my aim, to create simple and short tutorial level. Will it take 10 minutes to beat? I don't know. That will be revealed when playtest will take place. And that's why that thing I was mentioning before is so important. Okay, mister, that was a cool talk, but why don't you tell us why dungeon is not finished? To quickly recap, tileset, doors, room transitions, enemies, items and many more are finished. What's missing from the list? Probably two most important things: boss and sub-boss. Creating those heavily scripted fights are something more than just giving state machine to character body 2D, so that's why I left it to the very end. And thanks to time flying fast and my promises being unreachable, it's not finished. First, let me present to you Wasp General. Much stronger and dangerous version of Wasp Spearman. Not only equipped with spear, but also crossbow. This fight could be summed up as fighting with Wasp Spearman with a lot of health, more damage and a little bit of unique mechanics, so nothing special, but you need to remember that all this is basically tutorial area, so the first enemies and dungeons cannot be very advanced, as you can't scare players with high difficulty and unfair combat. Also, say hello to Taranta. She is the main boss of the Beehive, the source of all the webs and spider minions that run down all the rooms. Fight with her will resolve around dodging her attacks, fighting off minions that she will spawn, and figuring out how to bring her down, so Rutsy can deal her some damage. And let me tell you this, I don't have arachnophobia, but drawing spiders, looking at their pictures for a couple of days and reading about their anatomy brings shivers down my spine. And that was basically my story for the last almost 2 months. I am really sorry that I didn't upload for so long, but I think you understand it better after the video. I learned hard lesson for future that making promises when you are over-optimistic will always lead to bigger or lesser failure. But sometimes life just goes like this. You may be giving out all of you and the progress will still be trivial.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
That's why I am not going to be so negative about it. Let's just live in the moment and enjoy what we have. As always, remember to leave your question in the comments. Also be sure to follow me on my social media, which are linked in the description. Thanks again for staying with me, and as always, remember to have a great day. Bye!